God is but love, and therefore so am I. By grace I live, by grace I am released. God is but love, and therefore so am I. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. You make what you defend against. You make what you defend against. And by your own defense against it, is it real and inescapable? Lay down your arms, and only then do you perceive it false. Lay down your arms, and only then do you perceive it false. God is but love, and therefore so am I. By grace I live, by grace I am released. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. God is but love, and therefore so am I. God is but love, and therefore so am I. By grace I live, by grace I am released. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. Well, I'm Miracle Willie, forgiveness teacher from the Ozarks, and I am so thankful that you've come to study A Course in Miracles with me. We're ready for the last review, number 5, lesson 180, here on Friday, June the 28th of 2024. And it's lesson review of lesson 169 and 170. And in 170, he included that amazing prayer, there is no cruelty in God and none in me. And he explains in that reading that if you defend yourself by using attack, you're saying that attack can get you something that you want, which only love can get you anything you want. In reality, everything else is an illusion. And remember, the ego's in bad need of allies, but not of brothers. But we don't want to follow the ego's dictates and not use attack. We want to lay it down. And he explains to us how to do that. He says, there is no cruelty in God and none in me. You make what you defend against. And by your own defense against it, is it real and inescapable? Therefore, lay down your arms. And only then do you perceive it false. The thing that you thought was real, that was coming against you, when you lay down your arms and in your defenselessness, you recognize is where your safety is, where your power is, where your love flows limitlessly to everyone around you, including yourself. Then you lay down your arms, says lay down your arms, and only then do you perceive it false. So that's lesson 170. There is no cruelty in God and none in me. And, that kind of opens up the way to living in grace. Power from beyond the physical appearances of the world. By grace I live. By grace I am released. Okay, well, and of course we put all that in the idea of God is but love, and therefore so am I. So be sure, today's our last day that we're going to be doing God is but love, and therefore so am I. You'll probably hold that along with you for many days now if you've been conscientiously trying to remember that every hour of the waking day. That'll be something that'll be deeply integrated into your thought system, which you need for this new operating system that we're trying to download into our minds. Most of us didn't get these ideas as children, so we've been living our lives kind of hostage to the ego. But we're freeing ourselves as we take those hourly remembrances and thanksgiving throughout the day and bring to our minds today, God is but love, and therefore so am I. By grace I live, by grace I am released. There is no cruelty in God and none in me. And then be sure to do a little longer period when you first get up in the morning and before you retire at night. And take at least 5 minutes, longer if you can, and just be at peace with that idea. Say it a few times in your mind, then just open your mind and let it be still and quiet and let God fill it with whatever He has for you. Okay? Now let's go back and look at our text reading for today. And we're in chapter 19, the attainment of peace. And we're in the section 4, the obstacles to peace. And the first obstacle was the desire to get rid of peace. And now we're in section lowercase I, the attraction of guilt is what we'll read today. Under the desire to get rid of peace. Now, and the reason we'd want to get rid of it is because we're attracted to guilt. We still think that attack will get us something we want. And that to protect ourselves and defend ourselves and to help ourselves along the way, we've got to be scrutinizing and judgmental and use the ego's dictates and use attack when necessary. It's not the way. Anyway, we'll learn about that today. We're going to read that, the attraction of guilt. While you're turning there, let's see what's going on around the world from holidays and observances. It's Lightning Safety Day. Lightning Safety Day. You're caught in the rain, they say don't stand under a tree. Probably not so good right in the middle of a big field either. Anyway, Lightning Safety Day. Rose Wine Day. Let's see what many types of red grapes can make rose wine. One variety is the Grenache. Ceviche Day, which is a marinated fish food. Not food that you'd feed fish, but food that's made out of fish that you would eat. Marinated fish food. Food Truck Day. Food Truck Day. Paul Bunyan Day. He's the mythical character, the big lumberman from the northeast of the United States, along with his blue ox named Babe for pulling logs out of the woods. I'd like to have an ox for pulling logs out of the woods. I've got a little sawmill. I'd love to just use an ox to pull them up. I usually just use my tractor, though. Operation Red Wings Observance, which was a Marine maneuver done in 2005 in Afghanistan. Tapioca Day. It's made from the cassava plant, the Manihot esculata. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a warm season plant. I mean, it needs a frost-free environment. Zones 8 through 12 is your agricultural zones it'll grow in. But it's native of Brazil, as I understand. So if you make tapioca, you're eating from the cassava plant. Genus Manihot esculata, I think. And then it's Tao Day. And if you've ever read the Tao Te Ching, it's only less than 100 pages long, a little small book. Highly recommend reading it. Very, very good book. One of my favorites. My brother Carl used to like to read it, and he was a very devout, fundamentalist, conservative Christian, and yet he still liked the wisdom of the Tao. Remember the Tao? There's a little bit of good and all bad, a little bit of bad and all good. I don't know if he could always say that. Anyway, there's a little bit of white, a little bit of in all black, and a little light in all darkness, a little dark in all light. Remember that's the Tao sign. Ultimately, there's only good, but in the manifestation world, there's a little bit of delusion and all the good, as I think is what it's basically trying to get to see. I know my teacher used to say that in order to manifest a body on any level, you had to have a little delusion. Okay, but look for the good in it is what I'm trying to get at. I'm saying all that because we want to learn as Course in Miracles students to look for the good. And it reminds me of an experiment that I've been telling those around me. We're in the Jesus experiment, that we're trying to download an operating system that will allow us to actually do what he said, which was love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, and then I wanted to take a look at I think it's called the Issai, Issai, Dwarf Mulberry out of Edible Landscaping. It's a Morus alba, and it says of the Issai that Issai mulberry is a small tree bush that produces an abundance of black mulberries, usually fruiting the first year after planting, not as wise as Girardi when it comes to early bud break because of winter warm spells. Similar to Shangri-La and Pakistan in that respect. Introduced from Japan, spaced 10-foot circles, zones 6 through 8. Okay, and there's your Issai Dwarf Mulberry. All right, now let's take a look at the attraction of guilt. And keep in mind today, God is but love, and therefore so am I. By grace I live, by grace I am released. There is no cruelty in God and none in me. The attraction of guilt. The attraction of guilt produces fear of love, for love would never look on guilt at all. It is the nature of love to look upon only the truth, for there it sees itself, with which it would unite in holy union and completion. As love must look past fear, so must fear see love not. For love contains the end of guilt, as surely as fear depends on it. Love is attracted only to love, overlooking guilt completely. It sees no fear. Being wholly without attack, it could not be afraid. Fear is attracted to what love sees not, and each believes that what the other looks upon does not exist. Fear looks on guilt with just the same devotion that love looks on itself, and each has messengers which it sends forth, and which return to it with messages written in the language in which their going forth was asked. You want to try to see guilt as a result of a belief in a separated self called the ego, then you'll send that forth and you'll find witnesses to that and then bring it back to you. But that doesn't make them real, but it does mean that that's what you are wanting to see, and therefore that's what you see. On the other hand, you can say, well, I'd rather see God in everything. I'd rather see love everywhere. And I'm going to send forth the expectancy, the faith that that's what I'll see. And that sending out will return that to you, is what he's saying. Paragraph 11. Love's messengers are gently sent and return with messages of love and gentleness. The messengers of fear are harshly ordered to seek out guilt and cherish every scrap of evil and of sin that they can find, losing none of them on pain of death, and laying them respectfully before their Lord and Master. Perception cannot obey two masters, each asking for messages as different things in different languages. Again on that, perception cannot obey two masters, each asking for messages of different things in different languages. If you're looking for love, you'll find love. You're looking for proof that you're separate and that guilt is real, then you'll find that. What fear would feed upon, love overlooks. What fear demands, love cannot even see. The fierce attraction that guilt holds for fear is wholly absent from love's gentle perception. What love would look upon is meaningless to fear and quite invisible. 12. Relationships in this world are the result of how the world is seen, and this depends on which emotion was called on to send the messengers to look upon it and return with word of what they saw. Fear's messengers are trained through terror, and they tremble when their master calls on them to serve him. For fear is merciless even to its friends. Its messengers steal guiltily away in hungry search of guilt, for they are kept cold and starving and made very vicious by their master, who allows them to feast only upon what they return to him. No little shred of guilt escapes their hungry eyes. No little shred of guilt escapes their hungry eyes. And in their savage search for sin, they pounce on any living thing they see and carry it screaming to their master to be devoured. Sounds like when a chicken gets caught by a fox in the middle of the night and comes running away, it's squawking. And anyway, I've heard that sound. Anyway, In their savage search for sin, they pounce on any living thing they see and carry it screaming to their master to be devoured. 13. Send not these savage messengers into the world to feast upon it and to prey upon reality, for they will bring you word of bones and skin and flesh. They have been taught to seek for the corruptible and to return with gorges filled with things decayed and rotted. To them such things are beautiful, because they seem to allay their savage pangs of hunger. For they are frantic with the pain of fear, and would avert the punishment of him who sends them forth by offering him what they hold dear. Paragraph 14. The Holy Spirit has given you love's messengers to send instead of those you trained through fear. They are as eager to return to you what they hold dear as are the others. If you send them forth, they will see only the blameless and the beautiful, the gentle and the kind. Okay, let's look again at that. The Holy Spirit has given you love's messengers to send instead of those you trained through fear. They are as eager to return to you what they hold dear as are the others. If you send them forth, they will see only the blameless and the beautiful, the gentle and the kind. They will be as careful to let no little act of charity, no tiny expression of forgiveness, no little breath of love escape their notice. And they will return with all the happy things they found, to share them lovingly with you. Be not afraid of them. They offer you salvation. Theirs are the messages of safety, for they see the world as kind. Now that's what we're to be doing, is to see the world as kind. When we stop during the day for those moment, a minute maybe, of quiet where you just take a deep breath, maybe 3 deep breaths, say your lesson for today. Today you'd say, God is but love, and therefore so am I. By grace I live, by grace I am released. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. God is but love, and therefore so am I. And then have a moment just to be still. And then think about something that happened to you wonderful in the last hour since you've done this moment. Pause. And say, thank you for something that happened, something nice. Maybe something as simple as your dog was wagging his tail. Maybe someone said something that you could see was a little small tidbit of joy was coming out, even though maybe they were hurting. But whatever it is, you give thanks for that, and then have an open mind and ask God, what do you want me to do for the next hour? So do that throughout the day, and you send forth the desire, the faith to see love, and it will return to you. Paragraph 15. If you send forth only the messengers the Holy Spirit gives you, wanting no messages but theirs, you will see fear no more. Catch that? If you send forth only the messengers the Holy Spirit gives you, wanting no messages but theirs, you will see fear no more. The world will be transformed before your sight, cleansed of all guilt, and softly brushed with beauty. The world contains no fear that you laid not upon it, and none you cannot ask love's messengers to remove from it, and see it still. The Holy Spirit has given you his messengers to send to all your brothers and return to you with what love sees. They have been given to replace the hungry dogs of fear you sent instead, and they go forth to signify the end of fear. Paragraph 16. Love too would set a feast before you on a table covered with a spotless cloth, set in a quiet garden where no sound but singing and softly joyous whispering is ever heard. Now, isn't that beautiful? That's where we want to be, in that quiet garden. Love too would set a feast before you on a table covered with a spotless cloth, set in a quiet garden where no sound but singing and a softly joyous whispering is ever heard. This is a feast that honors your holy relationship and at which everyone is welcomed as an honored guest. And in a holy instant, grace is said by everyone together, as they join in gentleness before the table of communion. And I will join you there, as long ago I promised and promise still. Listen to what Jesus says. And in a holy instant, grace is said by everyone together, as they join in gentleness before the table of communion. What a beautiful, quiet garden experience. Let's read it again. Love, too, would set a feast before you on a table covered with a spotless cloth, in a quiet garden where no sound but singing and a softly joyous whispering is ever heard. You hear the birds singing? This is a feast that honors your holy relationship, and at which everyone is welcomed as an honored guest. And in a holy instant, grace is said by everyone together, as they join in gentleness before the table of communion. And I will join you there, as long ago I promised and promise still. For in your new relationship am I made welcome, and where I am made welcome, there I am. Now that's talking about the Jesus experiment. That's what I like to think of it, where you begin to recognize the Christ in your brothers and sisters in that quiet garden where love has spread a table, a feast, that we say grace together. So the Holy Spirit has given you His messengers to send to your brother and return to you with what love sees. You have been... Let's go. If you send forth only the messengers, the Holy Spirit... Oh, you know, I'm in the wrong place. Excuse me. Paragraph 16, sentence 3. And in a holy instant, grace is said by everyone together as they join in gentleness before the table of communion. And I will join you there, as long ago I promised and promise still. For in your new relationship am I made welcome. And where I am made welcome, there I am. And paragraph 17, last paragraph, to finish this section. I am made welcome in the state of grace, which means you have at last forgiven me. For I became the symbol of your sin, and so I had to die instead of you. To the ego, sin means death, and so atonement is achieved through murder. Salvation is looked upon as a way by which the Son of God was killed instead of you. Yet would I offer you my body, whom I love, knowing its littleness? Or would I teach that bodies cannot keep us apart? Bodies cannot keep us apart. Mine was of no greater value than yours, no better means for communication of salvation, but not its source. No one can die for anyone, and death does not atone for sin. But you can live to show it is not real. The body does appear to be the symbol of sin, while you believe that it can get you what you want. While you believe that it can give you pleasure, you will also believe that it can bring you pain. To think you could be satisfied and happy with so little is to hurt yourself, and to limit the happiness that you would have calls upon pain to fill your meager store and make your life complete. This is completion as the ego sees it, for guilt creeps in where happiness has been removed and substitutes for it. Communion is another kind of completion, which goes beyond guilt, because it goes beyond the body. Okay, well, thank you again for joining me today. Let's use our Russian word for peace today, mir. Let's see, let's make sure I get this song right. Let me look into the camera there. By grace I live, by grace I am released. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. God is but love, and therefore, so am I. By grace I live, by grace I am released. God is but love, and therefore, so am I. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. God is but love, and therefore, so am I. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. You make what you defend against. You make what you defend against, and by your own defense against it, is it real and inescapable? Lay down your arms, and only then do you perceive it false. Lay down your arms, and only then do you perceive it false. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. You make what you defend against. You make what you defend against, and by your own defense against it, is it real and inescapable? Lay down your arms, and only then do you perceive it false. Lay down your arms, and only then do you perceive it false. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. God is but love, and therefore, so am I. By grace I live, by grace I am released. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. No attack. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. By grace I live, by grace I am released. God is but love, and therefore, so am I. God is but love, and therefore, so am I. God is but love, and therefore so am I. By grace I live, by grace I am released. God is but love, and therefore so am I. There is no cruelty in God, and none in me. God is but love, and therefore so am I. Mere